Oh, welcome back to Off the Curb. I got to tell you, this has been easily the weirdest season I can remember this past college football year. It was bizarre. It gets continuously weirder and weirder as we go. And people think like, oh, the season's done. And especially Michigan fans, they tend to look at the situation and say, hey, don't talk about that. We're moving on and tough shit, nothing you can do about it. The fact is, weird stuff keeps happening. Now, this thing that is happening actually already did happen in the midst of this chaotic year that they had. I've never seen anything like it. If you enumerate the scandals, the staffers dismissed, the staffers suspended, and then returning, it was wild. And a component of this, what was this? Maybe, the 7th step out of 12 weird steps in this process was the Chris Partridge firing. Now, I didn't even know who Chris Partridge was until this news came out. And there were a lot of people I didn't know until they were in the news for a scandal. I didn't know the name Connor Stallions either. This Chris Partridge character comes out in November, becomes a relative household name for getting fired in the wake of, and in large part because of, the aforementioned Connor Stallions scandal. Now, facts came out, I would say, pretty quick. We know, as reported here first, that Connor Stallions was, in fact, on the sideline in East Lansing with Central Michigan, for example. We pretty much know what happened with Partridge, we think, but it was left pretty mysterious in terms of the details. So let's go into the day it's announced. Chris Partridge, linebackers coach, the, 5th, 6th, 7th domino to fall in some fashion in this Michigan scandal from this past season. This is the announcement of Chris Partridge being fired. And then we're going to get into this a little bit and revisit it and then tell you what actually happened here. It's kind of crazy. I'll tease that right now. Ben, let's roll that. Clip 1.
Morning, Michigan announced that linebackers coach Chris Partridge had been fired, and you're right back in it because Yahoo Sports is reporting that Partridge allegedly destroyed evidence on a computer after the scandal story broke.
Firing of linebackers coach Chris Partridge is effective as of this morning. According to ESPN, his firing stemmed from a lack of cooperation with the NCAA's investigation. Multiple sources say Partridge is not accused of knowing about the scouting by Stallions, but he acted after the fact to cover up evidence.
And Michigan said it would continue to cooperate with the NCAA in its investigation. The statement went on to say, quote, "We will continue to take appropriate action, including disciplinary measures based on information we obtain."
Okay, so we kind of know, but we don't know, right? So the reports from ESPN and Dan Wetzel at Yahoo Sports are effectively there was some type of interference with and or lack of cooperation with the ongoing investigation into the sign stealing scandal. So two pretty reputable sources. Obviously those were related news reports, but the origin of their information, Yahoo Sports, Dan Wetzel, highly credible guy, and ESPN was all over it with multiple reports regarding this process and this termination, as it were. So I think most people felt pretty confident in what that was, why that was, but there was a lot of speculation as to what was the exact nature of it. So we can understand and accept that, okay, it's related to the investigation. It's related to his lack of cooperation in some way or alleged tampering with evidence, as one report indicated that we just played for you. But like, what was it? What did he actually do? Was he shredding files? Is this Watergate? What was it exactly? Obviously, speculation when you don't know, and this is the 17th scandal in 2 months up there, speculation is going to run rampant. And I'm sorry, it's not on the public, and you're not going to get the benefit of the doubt. So I don't really feel all that bad for the University of Michigan that this continued to brew up a lot of conspiracy theories and cynicism and really a jaded take on it. Obviously, this was picked up by Partridge himself because he issued his own statement. This was covered at the time. He saw obviously a lot of what this blowback was and then appreciated or at least wanted to clarify it. So Ben, take us back there. Clip 2. This is Partridge's response in a media report to the scandal and the allegations of why he was let go. This is his response. Ben, roll that.
Was let go by the university on November 17th during the Big Ten and NCAA investigations into Michigan's alleged stealing sign scheme. Now, Partridge released a statement on social media today sharing his side of the story. I want to be clear, I had no knowledge whatsoever of any in-person or illegal scouting or illegal sign stealing. Additionally, at no point did I destroy any evidence related to an ongoing investigation. I was terminated because of a failure to abide by the university directive not to discuss an ongoing NCAA investigation with anyone associated with the Michigan football program.
Okay, so a little more specific. He explicitly absolves himself in this statement from any knowledge with the sign stealing, any involvement in that upstream of the scandal. So it seemed like, honestly, from the beginning, the allegation was Partridge was involved after the fact in some kind of cover up or whatever it was, some type of tampering was the allegation. Different terminology from the different reports, but the same gist. I can say from my reporting on this, and I don't get any credit really because I'm just thumbs upping what everyone else has said on the record. There's no evidence that we know. You're never going to say 100%. There's no evidence that anyone's aware of at this point that Partridge had anything to do with anything with Stallions before the scandal broke and this investigation happened. So that component of his statement, by all accounts, is true. There's no evidence to the contrary. That's effectively what Yahoo said, what ESPN said. That's my understanding as well. Where his statement gets a little bit iffy, and this is where I'm going to shed some light for you. He says, and Ben, if you can put it up there like on mute, even just, and you can take your time because I know I'm throwing this sort of as a curveball to you, Ben, like the second half of that statement, when he talks about he didn't tamper with evidence at all, this was involving him communicating with members of the program effectively. So he's saying I was terminated because of a failure to abide by the university directive not to discuss an ongoing NCAA investigation. Look, I'm not going to get into the exact nature of how he violated that. In his own statement, he basically admitted that he was having conversations that he, probably shouldn't have, not that because they're inherently nefarious, but investigations are sticky things. You got to be careful. You got to just shut it down. And even a innocuous seeming conversation, innocuous intended conversation can be problematic. I'm not going to get into that because he basically admitted it at the time. Like, okay, yeah, I kind of did that. But Ben, throw up that last part right after. He's saying that he is, in his sort of take on it and his opinion, he was terminated because of oh no, that's okay. We already hit that. Do the next one. He goes, I want to be clear. He's saying he was terminated despite having no knowledge. He did not destroy any evidence related to the ongoing investigation. And Ben, I think there's one more clip after that. His take is, yeah, here you go. No, that we already did that one. You're good. I'm throwing Ben a curveball. His take is effectively this. I did talk to some people, and that's really the crux of it, but I didn't know anything about what was going on. I knew nothing about what was going on before the investigation. So in other words, I wasn't an accomplice with Stallions. I wasn't helping fund the operation. I wasn't funneling money. I wasn't hiring guys. I wasn't even aware he was doing this, etc. Again, nothing's 100%. I have no evidence to the contrary. I can effectively confirm by all accounts the reports that were already out there. He's telling the truth about that. I'll back him up on that. He's effectively admitted that there were some conversations that he had with members of the program. I've heard that too. That's true. So no controversy there. It's the third point where he says at no point I tamper with any evidence at all. That's of questionable veracity. And that's what I'm going to I can't believe this is true. I honestly, when this was told to me originally, I thought for sure it was a joke. I mean, I thought I was being messed with. I made two calls, well, 3 in the end, 2 answered on my first attempt. I made 2 calls right away to effectively, hey, have you heard this? Can you confirm this? I can't believe it's true. I can't believe I'm going to say it. Allegedly, there was some tampering going on and destruction of evidence, alteration of evidence, whatever you want to say, at least from the Michigan perspective. That's what they are alleging. We are kind of already knew that. But what was the nature of it? I think it's fair to assume in this cacophony, there was some kind of crazy, nefarious thing going on. He was deleting receipts, proving his involvement in the scandal, or that it was bigger than we even thought involving Stallions or whatever. It's natural for your brain to go there. It's less nefarious, but way more funny. So here we go. Remember that manifesto? There's the Communist Manifesto, the Marxists read. It was the Michigan Manifesto. I can't believe this is a real thing. Allegedly a 500-page document. I'm dying to read it. If I could hack the server, I would take my chances on not getting caught just so I could get access to this thing. I was fascinated with the Connor Stallions Manifesto to begin with. If you don't remember or somehow don't know what it was or is, basically Connor Stallions supposedly wrote a 500-page tome that was sort of the ultimate Michigan man and his grand plan to one day lead the program. Now, for the record, I'm not going to get into Stallions really here tonight. I don't even dislike Stallions. I wish I had a Connor Stallions on my team. I want him on the sideline at Spartan Stadium, but just on the other one. I want him to cross the street. So I'm not getting into ripping on Stallions. I actually love the guy. I'm jealous. I wish I had 10. So I'm not picking on him, but it is hilarious that he had this, that this is a real thing. I thought it was whack out of his mind. He was whacked out of his mind to have this document at all, even in a drawer in his private bedroom. The fact that this was a known document is psychotic in an awesome way. Again, I cannot emphasize this enough. I love it. I think it's the one thing about this scandal that I'm not outraged by is the actual guy at the crux of it. He's the least offensive party of any of them. The guy's great. So this book exists, and look, how can you summarize a alleged 500-page book? Supposedly it's about being the ultimate Michigan man and his vision for not just what would be the best version of Michigan, what he wants to see in this story or manifesto or diary or whatever you want to call it. Connor is the main character. He is the leader of the program. He's the head coach. He's the CEO. And it's sort of his dream scenario. I mean, this is, look, it may seem weird to you guys, but like Connor Stallions, Odell Bredham Jr. and I, the three of us, like actually all do this all the time. We are, I mean, different programs, but we're always talking about if we were the grand leader, what it would look like. So for the average person, it's weird. Maybe not for me as much, but it's a fascinating document and concept. I thought we were done with that part of this story, the scandal. We're not. Allegedly. But I believe it, double source now. And a non-denial, no comment from a third. The evidence that was being tampered with was, in part at least, the manifesto, which for some reason is on the Michigan server. I have no idea why. The people who told me the story had no idea why. I said, don't you think that's kind of weird? They said, yeah. So we can assign whatever motive we want. What Partridge allegedly did in this destruction of evidence or alteration or whatever you want to call it, and this is Michigan's characterization of it, he went into, like under his own name, logged in, he went into their shared folder, their server, and altered this document. Now, I don't know what all the alterations were, but the key part that I do know, if the report's true, which I believe, he was taking names of current Michigan football players out of the document. That was the alteration. Now, Could there have been other alterations? Could he have been monkeying around with other stuff? Very possible. I got a non-denial of that possibility, but that was that third call, and he wasn't giving me anything. But I suspect like there may be something kind of similarly relatively benign, probably, but that was the tampering of evidence. That's why Partridge was fired, if we are to believe my sources on it, and I'm not reporting it because I don't believe it. I absolutely believe it. I'm just so flustered. I can't believe it's true. And this is the guy that created the Urban Meyer hype. And I have a capacity for big ideas. I can't fathom getting fired. I can't fathom the manifesto exists to begin with. I can't fathom getting fired for it. And the question is, why would he do that? Why would Chris Partridge go? And this is effectively a gag order from the school. They are told, and this is coming from above them at the NCAA level, they're told, don't touch anything, don't mess with anything, don't tamper with anything. So it would be weird to begin with, but especially you have to put yourself in that time. You have to be so careful. You're not supposed to do anything that could even be perceived as problematic. And I don't know what he was thinking, if this is true, and I believe it is true. What was he deleting out of there? Now, I speculate. Now, I'm getting into speculation. I'm reporting that. I'm speculating this. I speculated to my sources on this that Connor Stallions probably had in there something like, and I'm making up this example, but something like Will Johnson is the consummate Michigan athlete. He's 4.2% body fat, and his skin glistens in the sun, and whatever. And Partridge, having had access to this document either all along, or he heard about it, said, "Oh, that's weird," and then found it. Whatever, doesn't matter. He wanted to protect the players involved, even though their mention in the document is like ridiculous. It's not like I dropped a bag to Will Johnson on State Street. I mean, it's just this like insane Silence of the Lambs style book or story. That was my posited theory to the sourcing on this. And they basically confirmed that. I mean, not the exact nature, but they were of the understanding that it was to protect players, not from a legitimate getting tied up in this, but a misunderstood or stupid, trivial getting caught up in it. So in other words, he doesn't think, and I have no evidence to suggest there is anything in there that he deleted regarding these guys' names where they were tied to anything illegal. It's the insane ramblings of a madman in there. But that's, again, we're in the speculation aisle. But what I can report is Michigan, their position is he went into the server and manipulated the weirdest document that's ever been on it. And motive? We don't have all the pieces. And even if we did, who knows? It seems he was probably trying to just protect guys from getting jammed up in something that they didn't really deserve to get jammed up in. And me, of all people, I'm thrilled to implicate guys if they actually did stuff, especially coaches, the adults in the room. It doesn't seem that way, but it's still hilarious that that's what happened. And it does beg some questions, though, because, again, I'm just speculating. I've been caught off guard at every step of the way here, and so is the Michigan media. I mean, Chris Ballas has not been right about a thing this entire time. Anybody out there, just report the opposite of what he has. I mean, you're gonna make it. You're gonna be deep throat. I mean, the guy can't hit. He has to report the sun rising tomorrow just to see one go through the hoop. So no one's been able to get a hold of this, least of all the actual Michigan insiders. I don't know how a couple of Michigan State people are reporting the most on this. I had the Stallions on the sideline story first. Where are these people? I don't know, but this story just gets weirder and weirder. And here's where it gets even more interesting. Do we know whether or not Chris Partridge is going to sue. Now, the first indication of this, other than, it's kind of obvious. Most people sue for wrongful termination in situations like these, justified or not. But we knew, effectively confirmed, that there was something along this line brewing. Ben, our good friend of the show, good friend of mine, John Ubacon, tweeted, I don't know, breaking this report or discussing this. This was an interesting element. So is he going to sue? That's the question. So John says, not looking for football scoops these days. I occasionally get one anyway. From insiders, Chris Partridge retained Tom Mars and a Michigan lawyer a few months ago. They're, quote, digging into how and why Ward Manuel fired Partridge without any investigation or opportunity for him to tell his side of the story and what Manuel told the Board of Trustees about the grounds for termination. There will be stunning new information. Okay, Ben, keep that handy because I'm probably going to call it back up here in a minute. But a couple things to address there. You got to remember who you're talking about. This is Tom Mars. Now, I've had a couple interactions with Tom Mars, and despite whatever rancor he may have with other people or whatever people's opinions are, he's been nothing but polite with me. I don't know him, never met him, had a couple interactions, invited him on the show during the tunnel situation. I've had no negative interactions. He's been a gentleman with me. But in reality, his reputation is he's a fire breather. He's a fighter. He likes it. And I don't think he'd be offended by that. I think he would probably take that as a compliment. A lot of attorneys do. And it's not to say there's no credibility, but this is the same guy that was breathing hellfire. And I mean, if you had listened to him, you would think that the Michigan State players involved in that aforementioned tunnel incident were going to be executed. I mean, it was the big, colorful language about, a total paraphrase because this guy, I'm going to go after an attorney who's litigious. That's a great idea by me to misquote him. But his general vibe was, this is going to be a really bad thing for Michigan State, and it really wasn't. It ended up not being a big deal from the legal perspective. So Tom does have this sort of showman's attitude, approach, and style. He's tough. He's gritty. He's a little bit like Michael Avenatti, but before all the legal problems, similar vibe. You have to factor that in. So when he says there's going to be stunning new information, what is that? I don't know, but I did some digging on this. Will there be a lawsuit or not? Now, John didn't report that. John said he lawyered up and we're going to see. They're digging into it. Well, they've dug into it. And their position effectively is they're going to go forward with a lawsuit or attempt to settle this. That's my understanding from the legal community, a couple contacts I have. It could be as soon as this week. Now, that's saying that there's not a settlement before that. The goal appears to be, now that Tom Mars is not a source on this, although I did ask him for comment on this whole story, to be fair, and he politely declined comment, but he's not giving me this, but he seems, my read on it, to be saying this is going to be bad for Michigan. Let's just settle it and be done. What is this stunning new information? Well, the information I gave you makes Partridge look bad and makes Michigan look justified, but that's coming from the Michigan side. Now, they also have, I was told, hard evidence of this. So the denial that it was true, this isn't the Constitution involved here where he's owed some due process. Now, there's forms of due process under employment contracts, and you have to go to arbitration and things like that. But this is not like the guaranteed from God above, as the courts rule it, like right to due process. He's not being imprisoned for this. He was just fired. And so it's questionable, I would argue, whether Michigan even has to give this explanation that they're asking for. What was their thinking? What did he tell the Board of Trustees? It's dubious whether or not they even need to provide that information. What I have been told is that they know that he did it regarding this tampering with, of all documents, the manifesto, the goofiest document in there. Can we give them the death penalty for just being ridiculous? This is the crate that you got guys in disguise. You got crazy manifestos that I can't even believe are real that are then already too big of a part of the story. You can't even believe it's a part of the story. Then come back up tonight in the form of it being part of this tampering investigation that got another guy fired. I mean, that manifesto got a guy fired. He lost his job. Now, for the record, and I said it, I don't know if there's more that he did or alleged to have done, but I was told Michigan has that part pretty tight. And they know. And there didn't need to be some big investigation. They had them. It was zero tolerance policy. You're out. And look, again, this is with the caveat. I don't know what other variables may have taken place here, but talking about what I do know and what I'm reporting, I kind of don't blame Michigan. You got the spotlight on you. Even if you delay that decision or you seem to not have the enthusiasm for it, for one, you're setting a bad example because people are going to know that he's not following the rules because he was allegedly talking to people and he basically said as much as well. So you got to nip that from that angle so other people don't do it. And even downstream, what's it going to look like if he really did do something nefarious or even just procedurally incorrect? Are you going to look slow to respond? It's going to be thrown against or used against them and thrown at them as you didn't take this seriously in the middle of the storm. So if the facts are what they are, okay. I'm actually kind of on Michigan's side. Now, institutionally, I mean, how many rogue employees can you have doing crazy shit? At some point, I have to point the finger at the North Star. But if I were looking at this in a vacuum and not as chapter 7 of 27 of this crazy nonsense that they were involved in last year, I would defend Michigan with what I know. But here's what's going to be interesting. Again, I was told probably this week, if not soon, that this lawsuit will go forward if a settlement is not reached. Is Tom Mars bluffing? Because the salacious, interesting, stunning thing that I had was stunning in its weirdness and was honestly a pro-Michigan fact. I don't think, hey, guys, guess what? My client really did do what he's denying to have done, and it's really bad, is his stunning new information. I was told from people who have had conversations in that space in the legal space, no Tom Mars, that whatever's in there, and that now one of the people I talked to knows more than he's willing to tell me. That's fine. It's not going to reflect well on Ward Manuel is what I was told. I don't know what that means. My response when I was told that was, what does reflect well on Ward Manuel? My second comment was, is Ward even going to care? How long until Ward even finds out that this lawsuit is out there? Isn't this his period of hibernation? We don't normally see him from like June 4th to September 2nd. I don't know. But apparently from someone, well, two people that have heard kind of what they're alleging in terms of this process, it's not going to reflect well on Michigan. And it would behoove Michigan to settle, was their take. I'm not reporting that. That's hearsay that I'm kind of sharing with you with that caveat. But I can say that Michigan feels very confident in having the goods on Partridge, at least as it relates to this. I don't know what Partridge knows. I don't know what Tom Mars is alluding to. He was selling a big game with the tunnel thing. It kind of wasn't that big of a deal in terms of the legal system. These guys got in and out pretty quick, except for one exception with one of the players brought a gun to the bar in East Lansing. But I mean, who hasn't done that at least a couple of times? And then they're like, look, I don't know where it's going to go, but I do think it's interesting. Do they settle? Obviously, they're going to know as part of their decision what they're alleging on the Partridge Mars side of this. So that's going to be part of the calculation. My guess is, even if it's a bunch of bullshit, just settle. I mean, how much? You're not going to have to pay Partridge $40 million. Why? Michigan needs to stamp this out. They don't want any part of this shit. Even their fans now, when this gets brought up, the scandal at large, it is just get out of my face. It's done. And they'll tweet a GIF at you or a stupid JJ McCarthy picture, or 49-0. I mean, they just want to go kind of like the troll level and avoid it. and move on. And, oh, you're still obsessed about this. And Michigan, I'm sure, although the one difference is those people overwhelmingly have zero affiliation with the University of Michigan, and the University of Michigan does have an affiliation with itself. That distinction aside, I assume they have a shared interest in just getting past this. I'm kind of shooting a little bit in the dark because I don't know what they're alleging on the Tom Mars side, but I was told that if it gets out, not that it's necessarily the bombshell Mars is promising, but it's not going to be great for Michigan in terms of perception, at least in particular regards to Ward. I don't know what reputation Ward is squandering. I can't find anybody that likes Ward Manuel. I don't know how strong of a card that is to play for Tom Mars and Chris Partridge to say, hey, guys, if you don't get serious, we're going to make people think Ward Manuel stinks. It's like, I don't know. Is that a strong hand? I don't know, but I don't know if that's all they have. But I'm going to be following it. So there you go. That's one of the weirdest stories of all time. I can't believe it's true, but it is. It's a component of this. Is it the only thing? I don't know. Last thing I'll say is there a chance that something nefarious was in there? I don't know. It doesn't seem like, why would the Bible on how to be a Michigan man and the grand vision involve, the GPS coordinates for the drop point for the bag for the filming session and the bleacher? It doesn't really make any sense. Like, that would be somewhere else on the server. It's a weird story, though. Never underestimate Michigan's ability to come up with something bizarre in this whole fiasco, and we'll see. I'm fascinated by it. I can't wait. Ben, great job by you. I'm going to stay on it. I don't know what's going on. I will say we have broken 2 more stories on this scandal than basically the entire Michigan media, if you take away all the wrong ones. I mean, Chris Ballas has reported 100 things. Hasn't hit one yet. I think that is I don't think it's an accident. Their people don't really want to address what's actually going on here. And is it the most nefarious manifestation of the truth? No. But man, that school has some weird shit. I mean, that school has weird shit. There's worse places. There are places that have a bigger problems. I mean, Georgia, since we started the show, has gotten 3 more DUIs probably. Look, no one can touch them on the weird scale. Jeff Jackson, mysterious use of the AD's wife's car. Weird. Their coach getting into fights at practice. Weird. A staffer let go for alleged pedophilia. Very weird. Everything about Connor Stallions. Very weird. This, very weird. Computer access crimes from their other coordinator last year. Fired at the end of the year. Weird. If you break down the list of how many people have been let go or suspended in like 10 months, it's crazy. It's Harbaugh suspended twice. The only time that's ever happened, twice in one season, not let go. I spent 10 hours researching this with help. Couldn't find a single example in the history of American sports. That alone is bizarre. Partridge, fired. Connor Stallions resigned, but come on, we all know where that was going. You had the computer access crime from last year, at the end of last year. So put that in like the 10 months of all this shit. It's one thing after another. How, like, you have the pedophile staffer. How do you have your coach be suspended for the first time it's ever happened twice in one season and not get fired? Your coordinator fired for a computer crime. Your linebackers coach 11 months after that fired for, in essence, a computer crime, I guess. I mean, tampering with evidence on a computer, allegedly. So he's gone. Yeah, pedophile. You got Stallions. Any one of these things is nuts. How do you have all of them in 10, 11 months? And I'm so amused by these people that say, what's tainted about it? I don't care what the NCAA says. Anybody with an ounce of objectivity, forget the honesty or the integrity of the game. If your takeaway is this was a standard championship season absent of controversy and problems, you're nuts. And you are in that cult that certain people talk about. I would just lean into it. Now, I'm not saying lean into the crazy, like people doing crazy shit, but lean into the hate, because that's the play. Gaslighting people and acting like, oh yeah, this is just like 2021 Georgia. This is exactly like LSU. This is exactly like the great 2020 Bama team. This is 2014 Ohio State. You're crazy. I could have your controversies and you still put them to shame, and it's still going on. I just gave you another weird update. And apparently there's other weird updates out there. They are a weird institution, man. They're crazy. Like I said, there's worse ones out there. There's more corrupt ones. There's more evil sins out there. Some of this stuff is, the child pedophile one is pretty bad, but I don't think that was an institutional problem. But how many lone wolf parasites do they have? If you have 7 lone wolves doing crazy shit, doesn't that sort of undermine the definition of a lone wolf? I've never seen anything like it. It's wild. I'm going to be following it. I'll keep you guys updated. I appreciate you. If you're watching live, it's late. You guys are the best. This has been Off the Curb from the Spiro Avenue studio, Justin Spiro. And we'll be right back with you guys within a couple of days, probably with an update on this shit. Just stay tuned, guys. It is weird in Ann Arbor. What a bizarre place. You can't say they're not interesting. They're not boring. Justin Spiro, we'll see you. Thanks, Ben.